topic is kind of how to get into more government-related positions here. And so we brought in 3 presenters. 2 of them have on Google Hangout, so there's coming in from DC and Charleston, I think. And then we have another one, Dr. Dyer, here as well. So technology, this is the first time trying to do this, so if there's any blurps or anything, feel free to hold comments because it's new. But feel free to ask questions. We'll just kind of start out with presenters introducing themselves and how they got to where they are. I do ask, if you ask questions, please speak really loud so they can hear you because it's basically going on my computer there. And then also, just kind of housekeeping things. You have some handouts with you on the table. Feel free to take those away. And if you don't have 4 handouts, there's additional handouts on the front rows here. Just more information that pamphlets given us to by Emily and Melissa. Just some more information on USJ jobs and resumes that are typical for government-related positions. And then also last thing is there's an evaluation form on your desk. If you could please just fill those out and leave them there. That will help us to, cater to more what you're looking for and to make this opportunity better for students. All right. So I'll just kind of roundly introduce our presenters. Dr. Dyer here with us right now. He has experience working in Federal Bank Reserve in Atlanta. We have Alyssa Vega, who has experience with working in Homeland Security, and that's where she's currently placed. And then we have John Oger, who is a Clemson alum, correct? Yes, Clemson alum, and he works with Science Applications International Corporation. So I'll let Dr. Dyer start off with his experience and how he got to where he's at and what his involvement with this government.
Okay, so my name's Jerry Dwyer, and I'm a visiting professor of economics here. I was actually a tenured professor here from '89 to '99, and I was at universities before that. On the other hand, it's also true, I can't assume you really know very much. I've worked for the Federal Reserve System off and on. The Federal Reserve System is basically involved with the Central Bank of the United States, determining the amount of money in the economy and affecting the economy and all of that. So its employment of PhDs in particular, or even master's students to some degree, is concentrated in economics and finance. So I probably know more about that aspect of it. Like I implied, I've basically gone back and forth between working for the Federal Reserve and working for universities. I kind of like both, actually, for different reasons. And we can talk about that if you want to. So let me start off. So I went to graduate school at the University of Chicago, so I have a PhD in economics from the University of Chicago. And since then, I've worked at Federal Reserve banks and I've worked at universities. I was at the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta until last June, actually. What I was doing there for the last 10 years was, first of all, I was over the finance group, so there's a group of economists who do finance, basically look at financial issues related to monetary policy. And the largest part of what we did was we briefed the president. The president is a member of what's called the Federal Open Market Committee, and they vote on monetary policy. And so we briefed the president. We basically told him things to be aware of, things that didn't matter. We told him our particular point of view about things. And that was the major thing we did for the Fed. Now, in addition to that, we actually did research. That's different than a lot of government jobs. In the sense, we actually did research for publication in professional journals. That was part of our job. So in that sense, I guess that's part of why it's okay for me to bounce back and forth. And so after that, I actually ran this Center for Financial Innovation and Stability. And so again, the issue is what are you doing for the institution? I mean, that's why they pay you. It's like at a university. I always tell people, you know, everybody thinks when you work at a university, oh, you're getting paid to do research. No, you're not, actually. People in the state of South Carolina are not paying you to do research. They're paying you to teach students. They're willing to let you do research. but that's not why they're paying you. And the same thing goes if you work at a government job or you work at the Federal Reserve Bank or anything else, is maybe you'll have some time to do research like people do in universities, maybe not, maybe you don't want to. That's part of the question you have to ask when you think about what kind of job to get, but it's still not what they're paying you for. So in the Center for Financial Innovation and Stability, what was I doing for the Atlanta Fed? We were still briefing the president and other things, but part of what I was doing for the Fed is acquiring information and having contacts with a lot of different people about, most recently, developments in Europe and the sovereign debt crisis that's ongoing there. So that I could tell the president stuff and I could tell other people's stuff, and then they could use that to help them inform their decisions. And then I wrote up things that were sort of supposed to, that hopefully were of interest to people in the general public. And so that's basically what I was doing, and that's basically, I guess, introduces who I am.
Thank you. All right, Alyssa, do you want to go ahead and give your introduction to yourself and your experience through your career?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes. We hear you well.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, I see some nodding.
Yes.
So hi there, I'm Alyssa Vega. My title is Deputy Human Capital Officer at the Technology Directorate of Department of Homeland Security. And basically I'm in human capital, and we call it human capital. Raise your hand if you can hear me. Okay, good, sorry. So I'll keep talking. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties over here with this Google Hangout. So I went to the University of Miami for my undergrad, and I finished in 2004. I did an internship the summer between my junior and senior year at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And I just found that through the university, sent my resume. It was a lot easier back then for government to get jobs because of all these special hiring authorities for students. And so I got hired, loved it. I came back the next year. I worked there for 6 years in recruitment area. I had a bunch of recruiters that would go out to universities and try to scout out new talent. So I found it fascinating because I really liked back then, even though we were getting young and you know, just people from just undergrad and graduate degrees, they were really coming in and getting a lot of responsibility right off the bat. So, you know, my first year I was 22 and I had a $150,000 budget to manage, which was kind of incredible. And we hired economists and engineers, and it's been really interesting in this area and human resources and see people coming in year after year. Once you're in the government, it's kind of easy to move around because once you've already completed and gone through the process of hiring, it's a lot easier to compete for jobs that are meant just for government employees. So I went over to Homeland Security 3 years ago and just kind of been at the right place at the right time, became a supervisor. After that, my boss left and I kind of stepped in, and now I'm the deputy of, you know, kind of what we would call the HR director. So I'm the deputy HR director. And it's very rewarding. I don't envy any of you right now that are out there looking for jobs, trying to, you know, finish your school and also look for a that's actually very competitive out there. And there are some new programs in the government that have replaced those programs that they had back when I was applying for jobs. So I'm looking forward to talking to you about those. You know what else about my background? I went to GW for grad school. The government helped me pay for part of that, and they also paid for my student loans for my undergrad, because you may not know, but the University of Miami is actually a private school and it's very expensive. Even though we have an awesome, you know, large football team and basketball team, we're actually a medium-sized private university. So, anyway, so I've had a lot of opportunities within within the government to further my education. And as I'm trying to find out more about what's out there, getting you closer to your career aspirations. Thank you for having me, and sorry again for the technical difficulties.
No worries, thank you. All right, John, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about your experiences in your career?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, can you speak a little louder?
Yeah, I'll get up close.
Okay.
Let me know if you can hear.
A little bit louder. Can you do it a little louder?
Yeah. All right. So my name is John Proctor. I graduated and I was a financial analyst for
What is this? The other.
Hey, John.
Oh, the other presenters.
Hold on a second. Can you
Can
talk?
you hear me?
I'm not
I can
sure
hear you up here.
if your microphone is all the way up, but can you talk a little bit louder?
yeah. You hear me?
Can y'all hear him? Okay. Sorry, the volume's all the way up on this. I can't turn up any part of it.
All right. Sorry, I'm on an iPad. A lot of defense contractors don't have cameras.
All right. Go ahead and give it a shot, John.
All right. You hear me now?
A little bit. Yeah, just if you can
It's
talk as loud as you can, I think that'll be fine.
you're you think they can hear me? Because I think I haven't muted it.
Yeah, Emily, yeah, we can still hear you. We can still hear you. If you want to mute it while you're not talking, that'll probably be better. Okay.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
sir.
All right, cool. So I'm a Clemson alum, and I was in mine for a few years before I got enrolled in contract. My technical title is Security and Environment Manager. I deal with contract capture and execution. One of the things that I would say about defense contracting is that 95% of my company is defense solutions, defense services, but there's other things outside of that that we do as well. We're Fortune 500, about 41,000 employees worldwide. I'm in the Charleston office, right across from Space and Naval Warfare Advanced, but I'm open to talk about anything and let me know what I can.
Thank you. All right. So you heard a little bit about their introduction, where they come from, their background, education, experience. So I want to have you all, as guests of this workshop, ask the questions to these three individuals. I know some students that came up to me asked questions to me. If you want to find out more information, feel free to ask the presenters, because this is a time to learn from some more information. So have more free-flowing and really driven by you. So do you have any questions so far? Yes, go.
So I was kind of under the pretense, after looking up this whole opportunity and reading about the description, it sounded like you're trying to figure out with this talk or series, what is the best mechanism to go after catching the job. If we're going to go about going after a government job, is there like a centralized place that we go through? Or is it more simple in that, if you're obviously applying for a certain branch, you'll chase down that one branch? I don't even know where to begin. This was more something along the lines of, I was just interested in trying to learn more about that.
I don't really know the exact answer for the federal government. It probably varies. Certainly with the Federal Reserve Banks, the way it works is the Federal Reserve Bank.
There's no slice on the tips, you just go to one branch.
Oh, hold on. We have one person answering real quick. Go ahead.
Certainly with Federal Reserve Banks, they're all separate institutions. And so they all list their own job opportunities separately. The way you find out about the job opportunities is you go to their website. It's actually important. This is actually more, I know that personally, this is even more important with federal government jobs you have to address the specific qualifications that they mention. You know, if they say, for example, I don't know, I'm not really good necessarily. I can do this for economics and I can't really do it for other things, okay? Is, you know, if they say, for example, they want somebody who knows something about financial derivatives, and then you say, well, but I know something about banking. Well, that's not addressing what they're looking for. Now, if you actually know something about derivatives, then you might want to highlight that in a way that you wouldn't applying someplace else where they're looking for somebody who's doing banking. That is, I think it's really easy in today's environment to think if you just take and you spread 1,000 resumes all over somewhere, somebody's going to offer you a job. But the fact of the matter is if that resume doesn't address what people are looking for, then it's just one of 1,000 or however many applications they get that just go by the boards. With the federal government, it's actually even more bureaucratic than that. I was asked one time by a friend of mine to apply for a job at the CFTC. And so I did. And what he told me is that when I wrote up the letter, I had to address exactly what was in the job description. Because the secretary downstairs was going to decide whether this application proceeded to the next step. And it depended on whether the application addressed the specific requirements of the job. And so I think, you know, it's kind of natural to think, like I say, that you can just spread a bunch of stuff around and eventually something will stick. But I actually think it makes it even more important to address what it is they're looking for and whether you have what they're looking for, and if you do, to highlight it in the process of what you're doing. Like I say, I think it's more important with government even than it is with other institutions because they're more bureaucratic. And it always. So I think that's at least starts to answer your question.
All right, Melissa, could you answer part of that question as well? We don't hear you. We lost audio. Technical.
I think he's trying to unmute it.
Oh yeah, try to unmute it. Maybe you muted it. It's unmuted. Okay. Okay.
What's going on?
All right, well, we'll just go to John while you figure out audio. John, did you see the question that I typed up?
All right.
Oh. We have two of you. I can't hear your audio either.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes. Much
All
better.
right.
For position.
All right, John, go ahead and answer the question that I typed up there. If you can read it.
I cannot read it. What's the question?
It was from a student that asked, is there a centralized place to go to find a job through the government, or should they go through a certain branch?
Okay, well, personally, I don't work for the government. I'm in a private company. All the defense contractors that are publicly traded, they're all private companies. But, you know, 90% of the work that they do is through some sort of Department of Defense contracting. So, truthfully, one of the things that I would suggest is just Google defense contractor, and there's a list of all of them that pop up, and then each of them have a private website. You know, my particular company has its own career portal, so if you have any questions about that, you know, always feel free to email me or call me, and I'll be glad to help you through it. But every private defense contractor has their own career portal. They have to, based on government regulations for contractors.
Okay. Thank you. Melissa? I see-
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so USAJobs.gov, and I'm not sure if Dr. Dwyer already mentioned that, but USAJobs.gov is the place where the federal government has to post a large majority of their positions, and so it is a centralized place for searching for jobs. And so they actually, if you create an account, you can have it set up so that it sends you emails when certain positions open up that are of interest to you. And so some of the things you want to be looking for are keywords. There's something that we call a series. So anything, for example, in the 100 series would be your social sciences and economists. Your 200 series would be people in human resources. 300 would be general administrative. 400 would be in the science group. 500 series is the financial one. 600 is the 600, what's that? I thought I could get all the way. 800 is engineers. And so, obviously there's also descriptions, but you can be looking out for that. A lot of it is called GS, so general schedule is what that means. And what you're looking at right out of undergrad, you're looking at a GS5 or GS7. And if you're looking at out of a master's degree, or if you have about a year of experience after graduating, you could be looking up to GS9. If you're in a PhD program, you could be looking at GS11. And so you can actually have it set up a spider so that it sends you emails when a position opens up. You can have it search by agency or some type of interest to you. I also recommend makingthedifference.org, which is the Partnership for Public Services website. And it kind of helps us for the information that is on USA Jobs because it is a little bit cryptic. And so, those are things to be looking at for, setting up the email alerts. You could also go to USA.gov, which has a list of all the federal agencies that are out there. I recommend looking at smaller agencies, but they are a little bit easier to get in, but they're not as well known, so their competition is not as high. And so you can go to their individual websites, you can look them up through USA Jobs, and see if they have any openings directly on their page.
You there? He froze. Did she answer most of your question? Mm-hmm. Okay. She'll probably have to restart over again. John, you're still there? Okay, I can't hear you anymore again. Did you mute it?
Yeah, I'm on mute.
Okay.
I'm good to go.
Okay, cool. All right. See, I told you, new technology, new experience. Do you have any other questions?
I mean, I could follow up, but I don't want to monopolize.
Oh, if no one else has any questions.
I have a question. How specific does the resume have to be to the description of the job? Because it seems very, very specific.
So how specific does the resume
Yeah,
have to be?
to the job description.
John, the question was, how specific does the resume have to be to the job description?
It has to be pretty specific. I recommend having a resume for each job that you apply for. Just kind of customize it to it. I would say that 99% of the new hires that we have, they get screened, like the other presenters were talking about. They get screened before they even get to the HR recruiting. So most of the time, you're going to really have to keep those keywords. If it's looking for a business systems analyst and it wants SharePoint technology experience, if they don't see that keyword SharePoint there, you're not going to get to the next level. So I would definitely recommend tailoring that and really keeping it to 1 or 2 pages at the most. A lot of these resumes that we look at, I think, because they think that there's been such a competitive market, they'll have page after page, and the truth is people don't want to sit there and read a 7-page resume. So short, concise, to the point, but very specific to that job posting.
Okay, great, thank you. Dr. Dyer, you want to fill in for that?
I don't know, it's basically what I said before. I mean, look at the specific qualifications you're really looking for and make sure that whatever you send in, the cover letter, if you get to send that, and the resume specifically address what they're looking for and make it obvious that you have the qualifications. See, you actually want them to do more than that. You want them to look at your resume and say, I didn't think we'd find anybody like that. You know, and think about it that way. I mean, looking for a job is marketing. It's normal in school not to think about marketing anything. But the fact of the matter is when you're looking for a job, you're trying to sell yourself. You're trying to convince other people that they really want you. And so it really is marketing, you know, and if that sounds evil or something, I can't help that. But I don't think it is. It's, you have to provide the information to other people so that they want to hire you. And so, I'm not sure you need a different one for literally every job, but certainly you should make sure that it addresses exactly what they're looking for.
Emily, you have anything to add? All right, Alyssa, sorry.
Same thing that everyone has already mentioned about tailoring your resume, really looking at what transferable skills you have that translate into that new position the manager's looking to hire for.
Great, thank you.
So, if you don't have 100% of what they're looking for, you have no chance whatsoever of getting a foot in the door. That's what I'm getting out of this. If you're just out of school, where does that leave the person with less experience? And you have them getting a job with the government.
I'm just typing out just in case.
Anyone else can answer? Okay, well, I do, it really depends on the position, and really, like for a government position, if you're looking at specialized experience, that statement is key, and you have to have met those requirements. Now, for lower graded positions that we're really just looking for an undergraduate or graduate degree, that shouldn't be important. You know, your degree really is what qualifies you for the job. For anything that's more specific to a specialized experience, and you do have to have at least that type of experience. And you do, you know, think about how you've done something transfers, is what I always tell everybody. Just because you haven't done that exact same thing doesn't mean you can't. You haven't learned or demonstrated that you have the potential to do that other job.
Thank you, Alyssa. Anyone else want to field that question?
Yeah, I just think that sounds a little too dour. I don't think it's quite that bad. It's partly, lots of job descriptions, what they'll actually say is they'll say, you must have this, and then we'd like to have that. All right, so let's just focus on the must-have. And suppose we're looking at a technical position of some sort. I mean, that's the sort of positions I hire people into. And were we flexible about how much somebody actually knew about what was going on? Yes, to some degree, depending on how much they had of other things. And then the other thing is that you might know something, you might know, you know, if something says you have to be an expert in X and you don't know anything about it, it's not a job you'd like to have, realistically. Once you got it, it'd be frustrating because you wouldn't know anything about what it was you were supposed to be doing. I mean, you couldn't do it very well and it'd just be totally miserable. And so part of it is you want to look for things where your skills fit. You know, and we all have skills that fit somewhere. It's really a question of finding them. And even if you don't have formal coursework, you know, you can still know a fair amount about something. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Thank you. John, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Alyssa in the fact that for newer positions or entry-level positions, there's a lot more room for flexibility. The further up you go into being like a subject matter expert for a particular area, you definitely have to have some things just for legal reasons more than anything. But the biggest things I would say that really kind of put your foot in the door if you're missing certain things or you're intangible. You know, if they can tell that you want it more than the other person, to me that's the big thing. If you can demonstrate your leadership capabilities, because a resume only says so much.
Great, thank you so much. All right, yes.
So one thing that I'm constantly battling with as I'm starting to apply for jobs and classes and anything that really requires an application is when you're at the PhD level and you have endless amounts of poster presentations, oral presentations, publications, awards, you know, all these accolades, you can't put them in a resume because there's literally no space. A resume is typically 1 page, 2 page, if you're lucky, 2 page. A CV, I mean, my CV is pretty condensed, and it's 3 pages. So the point I'm trying to get at is, with tailoring resumes to each particular opportunity, I think that's pretty understood. I think most people can bite into that. But at what point do you decide, okay, I'm not going to discuss any of my poster presentations or none of my publications. I'm just going to say that I worked with X for this amount of time and Y for this amount of time. When do you decide to kind of bring it all together? When do you decide what you can actually cut out and what you can actually keep in as a PhD level student? I'm constantly battling with that.
Yeah. I've actually played around because I actually have a resume and a CV. And so, how do I decide what to put where? The first question you want to ask is what are the people you're sending it to interested in? If the topics of a couple of papers are going to be of interest to them, and it shows that you're competent in something they're interested in, then you definitely want to include them. 15 poster presentations, they're not really going to care for. You know, you can just say 15 poster presentations. And you can always put at the end CV available on request.
And that's pretty common.
I think on resumes it's not unusual for people who are technically skilled, yeah.
Okay. I've just never heard of
It's
that.
pretty common. It's pretty common just to use the CV actually.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it really, you know, it has to depend on the job you're applying for. And I know that doesn't help in a way. I mean, because you get the question, well, but I don't know what they're looking for. You know, and you can't just call them up and say, what are you looking for? Why don't you tell me, and then I'll just send you what you want.
And see, that's
It's like, that's not going to work.
Because like if you're applying for a job as a product specialist and you have, you know, expertise in entrepreneurship, you have patents filed in your name, you have poster presentations on that subject, publications on that subject, classes in entrepreneurship, all those things need to be on there. You literally can't fit all that on a one-page resume. So,
But you can summarize it. You can summarize it like you just did. You know, and if you have to do it in a paragraph to make it fit, well, you do that. And like I say, I don't think it's that uncommon for technical stuff to say, look, if you want more information, I'm happy to give it to you. Which is basically what you're saying if you're saying CV available on request, or if you have a website. See, I mean, I have my own website, you know, and so I just list that address. You can go find out anything you want about me. Well, almost anything. You know, I don't put that much personal stuff on it. You know, but you can do that. If you have a website, then you just have the address. And people will look. If you get them interested on the front end, then they will spend some time. I mean, you have to remember, every time that you're sending in one of these resumes or anything like that, you are asking other people who don't know you to invest their time in you. And so you have to think about, like you just did, is what is it they're likely to be particularly interested in. Now, it is true. It might be that they'd be more interested in something else and you guessed wrong. No, that's the way the world works, you know? But give it your best shot. Take the time to think about what you're doing. And it'll get you a long way. And if you have a website, you should definitely have the address on your resume, I think, personally. You know, people are curious.
And you saw John and Alyssa both agree with Dr. Dyer, so thumbs up. All right. Any other questions?
I have a question for the opportunities for H-1B visa students. For all of you.
Go for it.
Like, what are the opportunities in government jobs for people with H-1B visa?
Actually, as I understand it, you're home free. The Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve is technically part of the federal government in the way that the Federal Reserve banks are not. And they hire people with HB1 visas. For a long time they couldn't, actually. You had to be a U.S. citizen, period. But that's not true anymore. But you still...
Yeah, Emily or John, could you add to that question or answer?
Yeah, I can tell you for 99% of defense contractors, you have to be an active U.S. citizen.
Same thing for federal government positions.
Okay. Does that answer your question? Okay. Thank you. Yes.
I'm curious what the role of connections are and just knowing people, you know, in the field or really the position where you're applying. Is it as important as in the private sector? And if so, how would you go about connecting with people other than alumni?
I can talk. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hearing for
Formal English. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Alyssa.
Okay, so for connections in the federal government, it really is maybe not the same way that it is for the private sector because you don't have the flexibilities to just meet you, like you, and hire you right away. You really have to go through the competitive process. However, a lot of times government contractors who are in companies, who are in agencies, do get that rapport with federal hiring managers, and they end up getting federal positions through their connections as as a government contractor. So that's one avenue that we see often where positions get converted and somebody competes, and because the person really has good skills and knows the manager to get in. We used to have more flexibilities where we used to be able to just go to career fairs and universities, pick up resumes, or go to networking events and kind of get connected that way. But now you still have to go back to the USA jobs and compete with everybody else. So definitely it's not as crucial, I guess, as it is for the private sector. But the private sector is one way into the government, for contracts.
Thank you. Do you have anything else to add to that, John?
Yeah, I would just agree. I definitely think that we have a lot of employees that may work for us, and then they go to Space and Naval Warfare Atlantic or NASA or wherever. And it kind of goes the other way too. Sometimes government employees jump to the private sector because they're a contracting officer for the government, and now they're a program manager for us. It's the same way. So those connections, to me, those are valuable. You really got to network as much as you can, and I would really be in on having those relationships to differentiate yourself from the other 1,000 people that have applied for the job.
Great. Thank you. All right. Good questions. Good questions. You have any more questions?
Actually, I have a question for Dr. Dowd. For the Federal Reserve, how much is it important to have an internet presence when applying for a position? Do they look at, say, social media? I know a lot of positions now, they'll Google you and see what comes up, see what they can find. What if you do not have an internet presence? Is that a negative effect?
What do I not have?
No, for an applicant.
Oh. I think people are interested usually in the professional side of what to do and not so much in the other stuff. I mean, I read about this stuff, you know, we never did this, but I mean, I read about stuff where companies, you know, will look at people's Facebook pages and stuff like that. I mean, you know, and if you're some kind of jerk or an idiot or something, yeah, then they don't want to hire you.
Well, I actually don't have Facebook, and that's why I was curious. I
don't think you need to get one to get a job. I think more people have lost jobs because of Facebook than anybody who's ever gained one. I mean, high school teachers have gotten fired because of their Facebook pages, even, let alone not get hired. So I don't think any of that really matters. You know, when something that's a little bit more professional is LinkedIn. But I must admit, I still don't see the value in that. Maybe there is something for some people, but I haven't seen it. But certainly like other social media, no, I don't think especially.
I just asked you a question. Did you get that, John?
Yeah, I did. Do you want me to answer?
Yeah, you can give your perspective as well.
Yeah, I personally got off Facebook as soon as I graduated college. I would agree that it's more of a negative impact than it is a positive impact, just because, not just from the hiring process, but when you actually start working, that's more people that they have to monitor what they're doing on their social media. Twitter is kind of one of those things that can kind of go either way as well. You know, they want to make sure that you're not tweeting about topics that are somewhat controversial, I guess. And then also LinkedIn, like they were saying, is probably the best way to go. LinkedIn is basically like, to me, sharing your resume and your capabilities, and it's online networking. That's all it really is. So, but I would definitely say having LinkedIn is a plus nowadays.
Do you have LinkedIn as well, or no?
Actually, don't have LinkedIn.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
I definitely agree that LinkedIn, I actually think LinkedIn is a really good way to get connected with people with like-minded, I guess, career tracks, and kind of see what kinds of organizations they belong to, professional organizations, and the networking, I think, is definitely a plus. I also agree that I think Facebook and anything that you put out there that would be controversial is probably going to affect you more negatively than positively. As far as the internet and utilizing everything that's out there, one thing that I recommend to students is, if you have a passion for a certain area, whether it's environment or energy or political science, put in keywords, Google News and Google, in a Google search, so that it sends you like news alerts. And like I have it for doorkeeping, for cybersecurity, and the Office of Personnel Management, so that I can keep up with what's happening in the world. So I do that through Twitter too. I follow lots of federal agencies that are kind of doing the kinds of things that I'm interested in. And so I think having an awareness of what's out there in terms of, you know, and that those agencies are putting out as part of their social media is important. It makes you more knowledgeable when you interviews and you're talking to people.
All right, thank you. Was that the end? Yeah. Okay. All right, thanks. All right. Do you have any other questions? Yes.
So this isn't really like a full-fledged question, it's just like an affirmation of what we're hearing. It sounds like for the most part, if we're trying to get a job, we pretty much have to go through the internet. Is that pretty much what the gist of this is? That's what it sounds like? Okay.
Lots of places don't even accept applications except over the internet anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you pay postage?
Hi there, I'll answer that.
Yeah, go for it.
And you know, this has already been for years, but people used to ask me, why would I go to a career fair if I basically just have to go back to my dorm room and apply online, send resumes online. And it is true that everything is automated now, and the volume of applicants, you know, to the number of managers looking for jobs is enormous, and so you have to go through that. But I recommend that when you go to career fairs and you're out there talking to people about their jobs and how they got their jobs, or you're somebody that you know is in a certain company or government agency, you find out what are those things that are going to make you stand out. What are those things that you need to go back and put in your resume? You're basically getting the answers to the test. What are those things that I'm going to go back, put in my resume, you know, highlight so that I can go back and put that in my application. So I do think it's still important to have connections face to face, to go to career fairs, find out what's there, and understand that you're going to have to go back and go through the process, navigate the process.
Great, thank you. And John, you were at our last career fair, correct?
Yes, I was.
All right.
So what happens is I was directing a lot of the kids to go and apply to a specific rec number online. And then the kids that I really had a good feel for and felt like would be good fits, I saw their submittals and then pushed their submittals to the next level. I mean, it's just 9 times out of 10 you're going to have to submit online regardless, just as a formality sometimes. But the first step is always to look online what's posted and then network as much as you can and then submit online.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Yes?
Yes. I was kind of wondering how does the job search change once you get like a higher degree? So like if you get your PhD and you're trying to find jobs, there's a lot of jobs that you're overqualified for, and I was just thinking of how do you find the kind of job that you want once you do companies.
So what's your field?
I'm in civil engineering.
Okay.
So like, does a company want to hire somebody that has a PhD, or is that sort of like a competitive sort of thing?
Yeah, civil engineering, I'm not sure. Economics, finance, statistics, I know the answer is yes. And I would guess in civil engineering the same thing is true. I mean, the easiest thing to do is ask people who are like professors in civil engineering, whether they know. But the fact is you've acquired certain specialized skills. That's good and bad all at once. The good part of it is you know how to do something that other people don't know how to do. You know how to do something that undergraduates in civil engineering, lots of stuff that civil engineering undergraduates don't know how to do. And what you have to do is you have to translate that into marketable skills. You have to ask a question, and they'll be looking for it on the other side. Is they have certain kinds of things that they want somebody to be able to do, and your training enables you to do those things, and then you want to highlight to them how it does it. But I would assume in civil engineering, just like lots of other fields, there are jobs where they say PhD in civil engineering required. You know, and if you have less than that, they don't want to talk to you. Not because they're being mean or anything like that, but because they want that level of specialization. And that's where it becomes even more important to look at exactly what they're looking for, and then you have to highlight that you have what they're looking for. And if you don't have what they're looking for, you actually don't want the job. Because if you got the job, you just fail. And then you get fired, and that just screws everything up. You know? So what you're looking for is a good fit. You're looking for some place where you're high contribution and you like being there. And that's true whether you have a PhD or not, but I think it becomes even, the more specialized you become, I think the more important it actually becomes. You know, if you want people who are looking for the skills and interests that you have, and they're out there, you know, it just takes time. And what's the right word? It causes a certain amount of angst in the process because, well, you want everybody just to fall all over you and say, wow, you've done a great job, and everybody offers you, you know, big piles of money. But the world doesn't really work that way, unfortunately. And so it's uncomfortable for a while. But for almost everybody, it works out sooner or later. You know, it'll work out.
And either John or Alyssa, if you want to fill that as well, it's like your comments, if you want to elaborate on that.
So, if you can hear me, one of the things that comes to mind in terms of the PhD or master's degree is that in the federal government, it is very good to have technical skills, and I do think that PhDs and masters are pretty competitive and sought after. But you also have to combine that with the ability to describe that to policymakers, to describe that to the public, and so oral and written communication skills are key to government positions. So it's excellent to have technical skills, but you have to be able to disseminate that information and work with people from multiple disciplines to come up with best solutions for any kind of problem. So that's kind of the key in government.
Great, thank you. John, do you have anything else to add?
No, I mean, I agree completely with all that. I mean, the biggest thing that we run into is that we'll have somebody who has a PhD and a master's, but 1 year of experience. So they come in expecting to make, you know, X number of dollars, and based on their level of experience, you can't pay them that. So it really just kind of depends on what position you're applying for, and if we see the value and the potential there for you to advance, which is what we want, know that you want. So if we can find a good fit, then yes.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? A few more minutes.
I have 2 questions. The first one is that one problem I'm finding that I'm facing a lot is that I feel strongly applicable for the job description, and these are the lower level positions like GS5, GS7, but at the same time, the transcripts that they want 30 hours of specific courses don't align. Should we just not consider those jobs if transcripts don't align with the job description, but maybe your research experience aligns with the job description?
Person asked this or was.
Seems like question makes sense.
See, I can't speak because I can't. The Federal Reserve System is to some extent is different from Federal Reserve Bank. I mean, in fact, you've heard that because we had HB1 visas where I work. You know, the Board of Governors, which is actually much more federal government type, they have HB1s. But apparently a lot of the rest of the government doesn't. So there's quite a bit of difference between the Federal Reserve System and the rest of it. We typically don't advertise positions where we say we want exactly this this degree. Because sometimes people have, they have courses that basically cover the stuff you're interested in, or they have other knowledge that covers it. So we always try to avoid writing the job description too specifically because it's bureaucratic, and so you're going to get held to that job description. That is, it's not too bad at the Fed, but it's worse than the federal government, where if you write a job description that says you want, I don't know, an economist who knows a lot about derivatives, and then you find an economist who knows a lot about banking and you want to hire him, the answer is, oh, maybe you can't. And so you try to write the job description fairly general so that you can hire the person you want when you find them. But I can't say that that applies to the rest of the government. If they're asking for specific courses, my guess would be if we don't have them, go ahead. She would have been the best person to answer that question, actually, because she actually works at the federal government.
All right, Alyssa?
Yeah.
Did that question
Oh,
make
she's
sense?
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So, and I know what you're talking about. In the position, just in the announcement, they will outline what is called positive education requirements. So certain positions, like those in the 400 series, are all like biology related, or those in the 800 series are engineering related. At the lower grades, at the 5s and 7s and 9s, you do have what are called positive education requirements, which means you have to have those degrees. And so you do have to kind of steer away from those. You're not going to be able to get them through with experience. But there's positions that are more general, that are like 300 series or 100 series, that may have a little bit of a flavor for the position you're looking for, but they don't necessarily have that positive education requirement. So it is pretty strict in the government when you look at that.
Anything else to add?
We had 2 questions.
Oh, yeah, second question, what are the hiring rates like right now?
Hiring rates?
Yeah, hiring broadly across the board.
Oh no.
That's what I'm on. Hiring.
Hiring. They're not so great right now for us in the government, overall. I think some agencies more than others, but Homeland Security is facing some tough decisions right now in terms of having some people be furloughed for a couple of days of this year. At S&P, thankfully, we've just kind of put a little bit, not necessarily a freeze, but a chill on hiring. We're moving slowly.
All right, thank you. All right. Does that answer one of your questions? Right? Any other questions? None? Okay. Well, I think we've fulfilled all the questions from everyone, so I just want to thank all the presenters for being here and Skyping in as well, taking their time out of their day to kind of fill your questions and give you some additional information moving forward with potential career opportunities. So just give a round of applause. Thank you, Dr. Dyer and Alyssa and John, and I'm looking all over the place. Thank you so much. I'll keep up with you in email tomorrow. I'll follow up with you. All right?
All right, thanks.
Thanks. Have a great night.
Eat all your food.
Yeah.